My fiancé, whose IQ is 140 and who never forgets a thing, somehow forgot to prepare an engagement ring when he proposed, forgot the household registration book when we went to get our marriage certificate, and on our wedding day, he forgot to show up because he was busy helping out at his childhood sweetheart's wedding next door. My mother had a heart attack on the spot when she saw that scene. I begged my fiancé to come to her bedside and explain, but the man who was always distant to me sweetly called his childhood sweetheart's mother mom, and said that I was just a clingy junior who wouldn't leave him alone. Later, I handled my mother's funeral all by myself and applied for an overseas posting. When I returned home to pack, my fiancé, fresh from his honeymoon with his childhood sweetheart and looking completely satisfied, smiled and said, "Amanda, how's your mother's health? Let's pick another good date for our wedding to cheer her up." He didn't know that from the moment my mother passed away, there was no future left for us. Chapter 1. I took out all my winter clothes, carefully folding them into the suitcase. Suddenly, the door opened, and someone tiptoed inside. A pair of large, cold hands wrapped around me from behind, his icy fingers covering my eyelids. "Guess who I am?" He lowered his voice on purpose, that magnetic tone deep and teasing, just like every time he came back from a business trip and played around with me. The old me would have laughed and said, "Of course, it's my handsome man," then gently warmed his cold hands. But now, that sweetness was gone. I no longer had the heart to play along. I pulled his hands away and kept folding my clothes silently. My boyfriend, Angelo, froze for a moment, his cold fingers clenched into fists, his gaze dropping as he pitifully asked, like a drenched puppy, "Amanda, what's wrong? Hasn't our Cold War lasted long enough? You suddenly crashed the wedding that day, and I had to explain everything to the guests for ages." A sarcastic smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "A month ago, I became a laughingstock among all my relatives and friends because my groom married another woman in front of everyone. My mother had a heart attack because of that, and I was thrown out of the venue like a beggar by Angelo himself. Even on the day of my mother's burial, people in the village still pointed fingers and whispered mockingly, 'She's the one, right? The one whose husband ran away on the wedding day? And she's supposed to be a top student, almost 30 and still single. So shameful. I heard she drove her own mother to death. We always said daughters are useless, they can't even take care of their parents.' That same damp, suffocating feeling from my mother's funeral crept over me again, but my tears had long dried up. When I came back to my senses, I spoke lightly. "It's not a Cold War. We should break up." Before I could finish those 5 words, Angelo nodded, dragging out an indifferent "oh," and said casually, "So it's not a Cold War, it's just a fight, right? Didn't I message you to explain everything? Luna's husband ran away, and our families are close. Helping her out doesn't cost me anything." He plopped down on the sofa like a lord, picked up a gray-white sweater, and started folding it awkwardly. Under his messy bangs, his handsome brows furrowed slightly, and his thin lips twitched. "This sweater's so ugly, you should just throw it away." I said nothing, just stared at the silver wedding ring on his finger. Finally realizing what that icy touch over my eyelids had been, Angelo followed my gaze, quickly took the ring off, and stuffed it into his pocket. Then he blinked, trying to brush it off like before. "Come on, acting requires commitment." I forgot to take it off. "Amanda, don't tell me you're jealous again." I wasn't jealous at all. I just suddenly remembered. When he proposed to me at the dinner table, he didn't even have a ring prepared. He said he'd forgotten, and that he didn't like the feeling of being bound by jewelry. He promised to buy me a custom DR ring for the wedding. But in the end, that custom ring fit perfectly on Luna's finger, and the man who hated the feeling of being bound wore his wedding band joyfully, unwilling to take it off. Jealous? Not anymore. Over the past month, I tortured myself watching the news reports of Angelo and Luna's honeymoon, their smiling faces traveling the world, and I felt nothing anymore. I turned away, took the sweater from his hands, and said flatly, "My mother knitted this wool sweater herself." His hands froze midair. He looked slightly displeased but restrained his irritation, forcing a gentle tone. "Right. How's Auntie's health? After a month of rest, she must be almost recovered, right?" He smiled, his eyes curving. I always thought our last wedding venue was too small for you. Let's use this chance to plan a grand one, to make Auntie happy. I knew Angelo was in a good mood today, giving me several chances to go along. If I didn't, he'd lose his temper again. But he forgot, on the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate. He told me at the registry that he'd forgotten the household registration book, then turned around to accompany Luna to try on her wedding dress. We never got married. We didn't need a wedding. Coming back to myself, I gave a faint, sorrowful smile. There's no need. After being brushed off several times, Angelo's expression darkened just as he was about to speak. His phone rang. When he saw Luna's name on the screen, his brows relaxed instantly, and his tone softened unbelievably. I just got home. Why are you calling? Whatever she said made him chuckle, holding the phone between his shoulder and neck. He grabbed his black coat from the rack and said with a grin, Luna, you're pushing it. I'm still trying to coax my girlfriend here. This is the last time. All right? I watched as he slipped the ring back on, fixed his collar and hair in the mirror, and picked up his car keys. Just as he grabbed the doorknob, he seemed to remember my existence. He turned back quickly, ruffled my hair, and said affectionately, All right, Amanda, don't be mad. I got you a little gift. I'll bring it tonight. I watched him leave, then turned toward the floor-to-ceiling window. Through the glass, I saw a pink sports car parked downstairs, so low it almost kissed the ground. Luna leaned against the car door, sipping milk tea with a satisfied smile. Angelo, who was known for his obsessive cleanliness, lowered his head and drank from the same straw she had used before getting into the driver's seat. I looked away and closed the curtains. Then I turned around and picked up the foreign assignment form on my desk, the one I had already filled out completely. Chapter 2. I brushed my fingers along the sharp edge of the application form, then stepped out the door without hesitation and took a cab to the company. After packing all day, it was already evening. 2 days ago, I had already submitted the request for overseas assignment through the internal system, and it had been approved. Now all I needed was to hand in the printed copy for the records. Inside the company, everyone looked at me and whispered among themselves, Isn't that the woman who made a scene at the CEO's wedding in that viral video? Wow, didn't she take bereavement leave recently to run away from embarrassment? How does she even have the nerve to come back? I bet she's here to resign. She's been stuck at this company for 10 years. Still just a team leader. I heard she applied for promotion 5 times and got rejected every single time. Pathetic. Those cutting remarks used to sting and drag me down into depression. But now I felt nothing. After all, during the days I was arranging my mother's funeral, I had heard more than enough of that kind of mockery. Without glancing sideways, I knocked on the door of my supervisor Roxana's office. Come in. Roxana glanced at the form in my hand and nodded approvingly. Amanda, when you told me the other day that you wanted to go abroad, I didn't believe you. Before, when I offered you overseas assignments, you said you couldn't bear to leave your boyfriend and didn't want a long-distance relationship. But this time, you sure made up your mind. Headquarters will send people tomorrow to inspect the overseas project situation. Come to the office again tomorrow to show your face. Then you can go. You know, we started as interns at the same time. You were more capable than me and helped me a lot. I'm glad you've finally figured things out. I lowered my gaze. Yes, maybe it was bad luck. All the other interns from my batch had become executives, and only I had remained in the same place. When I walked out of the company, I looked back at the skyscraper I had dedicated 10 years of my life to. In these 10 years, Angelo's family business had grown stronger and stronger. Even the branch offices now rose high into the clouds. So why did our relationship collapse so completely? My story with Angelo had always been the cliché of the rich young master and the poor Cinderella. My father passed away early, and my mother raised me alone. Back then, besides attending classes, I spent every spare minute working part-time, tutoring, doing odd jobs, to make ends meet. Until one day, a girl not only refused to pay for her tutoring but also brought her roommate to block my way, demanding all the money I had. Just when I thought everything was hopeless, Angelo appeared with his bodyguards, pulled me up from the ground, and said he wanted to treat me to dinner. Blushing, he said he was bad at studying and was afraid of failing his exams, asking me to tutor him before finals. I knew very well he didn't need tutoring. It was just an excuse to help me. I was drawn to his effortless confidence, that natural brightness of someone who had never experienced hardship. The day he confessed, he held my hand and proudly announced to everyone on campus, "This is my straight-A girlfriend, the school beauty." When we graduated, I gave up the chance to study abroad on a government scholarship. When I started working, I turned down a $1,000,000 annual salary offer from a top international company. All I wanted was to stay by Angelo's side, dreaming of a simple life, marriage, children, growing old together, until a year ago, when Angelo's childhood sweetheart, Luna, returned from overseas, and everything changed. That day, Angelo abandoned me for the first time, even though I was sick, just to go to the airport to pick her up. That night, at her welcome party, he got drunk and refused to leave, clinging to Luna's hand, eyes red as he pleaded, "Luna, please, don't leave me again, okay?" From that moment on, we fought constantly because of her. I wanted him to have some boundaries, but he accused me of being controlling, of not even letting him have friends. He even mocked me, saying that since he'd known Luna since childhood, I was the one who came between them. Then, 2 months ago, the day Luna sent him her wedding invitation, after rejecting my hints about marriage 99 times, Angelo suddenly put a piece of rib into my bowl and muttered, "Amanda, maybe we should get married too." I shook my head, brushing away the memories. My shadow stretched long and lonely under the setting sun. In this world, I had no family left. After walking a few steps, the sky had already turned dark. I was about to pull out my phone to call a cab when I heard a familiar, playful voice behind me. "Luna, hold on tight. If you fall, I'm not taking responsibility." Turning around, I saw the brightly lit entrance of a bar. Angelo was holding Luna in his arms like a princess, spinning her around like a scene straight out of a romantic drama. Luna clung to his neck, her dress twirling as she laughed like a real princess. Around them, a crowd cheered. "Come on, 3 more spins. Go, Angelo. Don't forget to drink the couple's wine afterward." "Luna's so beautiful. I still remember when we played pretend weddings as kids, Angelo beat us all up just to be her prince. Looks like the prince and princess really did end up together." With a smug smile, Angelo gently set the dizzy Luna down as though she were fragile porcelain. Then he took a glass from someone nearby, linked arms with Luna, and drank. Cheers erupted all around. "Kiss! Kiss!" Angelo froze for a moment, not moving. Luna laughed and tried to defend him. "Didn't we say that was the last event? The games have gone on long enough. Everyone should head home." But the next second, Angelo wrapped an arm around her waist and kissed her. His eyes stayed open, clear and soft, yet filled with a deep possessiveness. The next moment, he pulled away, pressing a hand to his head and pretending to be drunk. "I'm going home, my head hurts." I saw every bit of his care, his tenderness toward Luna, all the affection he had once given me now directed at her, and I watched as he staggered, took out his phone, and dialed a number. Then my own phone started ringing, across the street, several meters away. Angelo froze when he heard the ringtone. The moment our eyes met, he straightened up instantly. Chapter 3. Everyone around looked at us in confusion and asked Angelo, "Angelo, who's this pretty girl?" Angelo's eyes flickered as he mumbled vaguely, "She's the housekeeper's daughter. My mom probably sent her to call me home for dinner." Luna's face was full of pride, her tone dripping with mock kindness as she deliberately enunciated, "Oh, the housekeeper's daughter? Then you'd better take good care of your young master." If it had been the old me, I would have cried and asked Angelo who it was that he truly loved. Now, I just felt bored. I didn't even bother to give him a glance before turning and getting into the rideshare I had just ordered. When I got home, I hadn't eaten all afternoon. My stomach cramped painfully, so I boiled a bowl of plain noodles for myself. I had barely taken 2 bites when I heard the sharp sound of high heels outside the door. The next second, Angelo kicked the door open. Seeing me eating, he frowned and snatched the chopsticks from my hand. "Amanda, why did you walk away just now? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I looked?" What I didn't expect was that Luna had followed him. She clung to Angelo's arm, looking worried but speaking gently. "Angelo, Amanda's a girl. Didn't you say you'd talk to her nicely?" Then she turned to me with a sweet smile that barely hid her smugness. Amanda, don't be angry. Angelo's always had a bad temper. He only has patience with me. But you were wrong too. You shouldn't have left him alone when he was drunk. I pulled out another pair of chopsticks, picked up a mouthful of noodles, and ate without looking up. The food was tasteless. Without raising my head, I replied to Angelo, "You've got your wife to take care of you now. Why would you still need me?" Angelo's expression darkened, his voice cold as ice. "What wife? Amanda, you're jealous again, aren't you? You've really gone too far this time. Those people were just acquaintances from our circle. Luna and I were only playing along. You think I enjoy drinking? I was doing it for you." I almost laughed. It was absurd. He had looked so content flirting with Luna, and now he acted like the victim. I put down my chopsticks, looked at him, and asked quietly, "For me?" Angelo answered matter-of-factly, "For you. My dad said if I agreed to a political marriage with Luna, he'd finally let me inherit the company. That way, I could be with you and transfer you to headquarters too. Everything I did was for you and your career." Luna frowned ever so slightly, her eyes glinting with malice as she chimed in sweetly. "Angelo's right. You didn't know, did you? To protect you. He's been rejecting all your promotion requests these past years on purpose. He's really done so much for you." I froze, a chill running through me, numbing my scalp and bones. All these years, I had pushed myself to exhaustion just to stand beside Angelo through my own effort. But now, Luna told me that everything I'd worked for had been sabotaged by him. Then what about all the plans I stayed up all night to finish? All the contracts I signed after drinking until my stomach bled? All the holidays I gave up, barely even seeing my mother before she died? What did all of that mean? My nose stung, my eyes burned red, and my voice came out hoarse as I asked, "Is that true?" Angelo didn't even look guilty. He nodded as if expecting praise. "Of course. Don't worry, soon you'll be the president's wife. You'll have everything you want. A few missed promotions are nothing." I laughed softly. It was bitter and hollow. Angelo had always refused to go public with our relationship. Even at our wedding, he insisted we only invite close family and friends, not make it a big event. No one knew we were together. His so-called protection was a lie, just a way to justify keeping me hidden, belittled, and under control. Now I finally saw it clearly. The sweetness I thought we had, the love I believed was mutual, none of it had ever been pure. I shook my head and finally said what had been buried deep inside me. "Angelo, let's break up." Angelo's eyes widened in disbelief. He stared at me, lips trembling, unable to speak. A flash of joy crossed Luna's eyes as she quickly scolded, "Amanda, you can't break up with Angelo just because he and I are close. He really loves you. Even on our honeymoon, every time he saw something nice, his first thought was to buy it for you." Still bringing up their honeymoon just to hurt me, Luna really was disgusting. With someone backing him up, Angelo regained his temper, his handsome face turning cold as marble. "Amanda, are you done? Do you really think you can manipulate me like this? Break up? Do you even have the right to say that to me? For 10 years, you've eaten my food, used my money, and worked at the company I gave you. What more do you want?" He rattled off the words fluently, not a moment's hesitation, like he'd rehearsed them long ago. So, he was actually that dissatisfied with me. He truly believed he was the one who had sacrificed the most. If it had been the old me, I probably would have argued with him, debating who had given more, who had cared more. But now, looking at him fuming in anger, I suddenly laughed. "Thank you." For a moment, Angelo's rage faded. He frowned slightly, confused. "Thank me? For what?" I kept smiling faintly, my tone calm. "Thank you for letting me see what I am in your eyes, a pitiful parasite who can't survive without you." After saying that, I carried the empty bowl and chopsticks into the kitchen, turned on the tap, and quietly washed them clean. When I came back out, Angelo was still standing where he was, motionless. Luna handed him a glass of honey water and said softly, "Angelo, drink some honey water to sober up. You used to love it." For the first time, Angelo seemed absent-minded. He set the glass down on the table, his face flushed red. After a long silence, he finally muttered, "I didn't mean it that way. I ignored him, turned around, and grabbed the suitcase I had already packed. The moment I stepped out the door, I heard a crash behind me. A glass hurled hard against the doorframe, shattering instantly. Sticky honey water splattered all over my clothes. Then came another crash, a box hitting the ground. 2 ceramic rings rolled out of it, cracked and broken. Chapter 4. I looked down at the ceramic rings by my feet, puzzled. Behind me, Angelo shouted in grievance. These are the rings I made for you overseas. I was thinking about you the whole time. Amanda, why are you being so unreasonable? Running away from home like this? I almost laughed. What was going through his mind? The inner band of the rings was engraved with the capital letters of Angelo and Luna, clearly a pair of couples rings made for the two of them. Yet he had the nerve to say they were made especially for me. Without stopping again, I dragged my suitcase away and found a random hotel to stay in for the night. After all, I was leaving this city tomorrow. The next morning, after washing up, I headed to the company. But the moment I walked in, I was greeted by a chorus of praise. Wow, you two look so good together. Even wearing matching outfits, you're killing us with the cuteness. I'm a fan of your couple pairing too. Can I take a photo? Right there, in the middle of the lobby, Angelo and Luna stood arm in arm, basking in admiration, while Roxana stood to the side, smiling awkwardly. So they were the so-called representatives from headquarters. When Roxana saw me, she quickly introduced. Amanda, this is Mr. Angelo, our CEO from headquarters. And Ms. Luna, the deputy director. They're here to inspect the overseas assignment program. Angelo deliberately turned his head away, his lips, which had been smiling moments ago, flattening into a cold line. He asked indifferently, who are the employees assigned for the overseas positions this time? Roxana pulled up the list and smiled. These 3. In an instant, Angelo's expression froze, his eyes dark and unreadable. Luna's gaze flickered with malicious delight. She immediately stepped forward, feigning shock as she scolded. How could you people handle things like this? Don't you know it's strictly forbidden in our company to send married or pregnant women on overseas assignments? Both the applicant and the approver must be punished. Roxana looked confused, replying in a panic. There's no married employee on this list. Angelo's expression turned cold as he pointed at me. Didn't she apply for marriage leave recently? Roxana sighed softly and answered honestly. She did at first, probably a mistake in the system. Later she changed it to bereavement leave. Her mother passed away. At that, Angelo's face went pale. His outstretched hand stiffened as he stared at me, disbelief flooding his eyes. As if realizing something, his expression shifted, and his voice trembled slightly. Why didn't you tell me that your mother passed away? I couldn't help but find it ironic. My mother had always adored Angelo, believing it was my greatest blessing to marry him. She used to dream of the day he'd finally call her mom. But what she got instead was Angelo marrying another woman, calling another woman's mother mom with affection. I spoke calmly. There was no need, was there, boss? Does headquarters really need to concern itself with an ordinary employee's private life? Angelo felt something slipping out of his control, an unfamiliar, growing sense of panic. He gritted his teeth, voice rising sharply. What do you mean no need? I was her son-in-law. Whose son-in-law? The company doors swung open just then. A middle-aged man entered, the fine lines at the corners of his eyes adding to the natural authority in his expression. It was Angelo's father, Mario, the chairman and head of the group. Everyone froze for a second, then quickly greeted in unison. Good morning, Chairman. He nodded slightly, tilted his head, and smiled as he asked Luna. Luna, I asked you and your husband to visit the branch offices just to show your faces. What's this? Did something happen? Recalling what Angelo had just said, everyone in the room fell completely silent, not daring to breathe. Luna's face alternated between pale and flushed. Tears welled up in her eyes as she forced a smile. Angelo's brother is Amanda's husband. When Angelo heard that Amanda was being sent overseas, he just wanted to stand up for his brother. Under the chairman's sharp, penetrating gaze, Angelo pressed his lips together, remaining silent, fists clenched tightly at his sides. The chairman's brows furrowed, his tone turning harsh. Who dares violate company policy? I'd like to see who has the guts to do that. I stepped forward, speaking calmly. Chairman, it's a misunderstanding. I'm not married. My ex-boyfriend and I ended things peacefully a long time ago. He raised his eyebrows slightly, giving me a quick once-over before glancing back at Angelo. I've reviewed Amanda's file. She's indeed unmarried. Are you mistaken? She's leaving for her assignment today. Don't delay her flight. Flight? Angelo's pupils constricted sharply, turning his head. He found me looking completely composed. His heart skipped a beat. Panic flickered across his face, a rare sight for someone always so composed in the office. He suddenly blurted out, "Dad, it's not my brother, it's me. Amanda's husband is me. How could I be mistaken? Our marriage certificate was issued on November 3rd. She's lying. I went with her personally that day." Everyone in the room swallowed hard, stunned by the sudden twist. This was turning into a real-life drama straight out of a wealthy family feud. Angelo relaxed slightly, thinking that now I had no excuse to leave. But the chairman's frown deepened. His eyes shifted between the two of us before he finally spoke in a cold, decisive tone. "What nonsense are you talking about? Even if she was your ex-girlfriend, your household registration book has been in my possession the whole time. With what exactly did you register that marriage?" Chapter 5. Angelo, who had always had an excellent memory and could recall anything he'd ever seen, suddenly seemed to forget that he had never actually married me. Instead, he turned to his father and questioned him furiously. "How is that possible, Dad? Don't lie to me." His father's face hardened, and his voice turned stern. "I've told you many times, in the company. You call me chairman. You've really grown insolent. I've spoiled you too much. Your household registration book has always been locked in my safe. And when have you ever asked me for it?" He spoke slowly and deliberately, helping Angelo recall that day step by step. "And if I remember correctly, that same day you went to pick out wedding suits with Luna. When would you have had the time to get a marriage certificate? You must be overworked lately, starting to hallucinate. Stop standing in the way of Amanda's career." His words were heavy, not just a reprimand, but a warning. A warning for Angelo not to interfere with me again. And the warning worked. Angelo froze, as if struck by lightning. He suddenly remembered he hadn't married me that day at all, because the moment he proposed to me, he'd already started to regret it. So he deliberately dawdled on the way to the registry office, pretending to forget the household registration book. With a guilty face, he had said to me, "I'm sorry, Amanda. Let's just get the certificate after the wedding, okay? There aren't any auspicious dates left this month anyway." And right then, Luna had called, asking him to help her try on the groom's tuxedo. He'd fled without hesitation. Now, remembering everything, he turned and looked at me, my face calm, unreadable. His lips trembled, but he couldn't form a single word. I turned to the chairman and said politely, "Chairman, Mr. Angelo and I are practically strangers. I suppose he's just joking because I accidentally mistook him for my ex-boyfriend before, which caused a little misunderstanding at his wedding." The chairman nodded, visibly satisfied. "Amanda, you can proceed with your assignment. I have high expectations for you." I nodded as well and turned to leave. Angelo instinctively reached out, trying to stop me. "Amanda," but the chairman's stern voice cut through his words. "Shouldn't you and Luna continue your branch inspections? I still have a presentation to deliver at headquarters about the company's recent achievements." Finally, Luna moved. Her eyes were filled with venom as she tore her gaze away from me, then grabbed Angelo's right hand and interlaced her fingers tightly with his. At first, Angelo tried to pull away. His eyes locked on me, but within moments, he gave in, turning his back to follow Luna. I no longer cared about any of these grudges. All I wanted was to escape this city as soon as possible. I went downstairs, got into a taxi, and headed for the airport. Along the way, I watched the familiar streets flashing past and whispered a silent goodbye in my heart. I never expected that. While I was checking in at the airport, Angelo would call me. I frowned, not wanting to answer, but out of pure habit. My finger slid across the screen anyway. With a sigh, I said, "Hello? What is it?" On the other end, I could hear the sound of rushing wind. His voice came through loud and urgent. "Amanda, don't go. Wait for me. I'm almost at the airport." Before I could respond, he hung up. I stood there holding the phone, frozen, my eyes distant. The airport? Why would Angelo come to the airport? He was terrified of his father. There was no way he'd dare chase after me. I wasn't vain enough to believe he still loved me so much that he'd give up his lifelong pursuit of power and status for me. But to my astonishment, Angelo actually showed up at the airport, breathless. He bent down, grabbing the handle of my suitcase, looking like an abandoned puppy as he pleaded pitifully. Amanda, don't leave. I don't want the CEO position anymore. I'll marry you. I'll steal the household registration book right now. Let's get our certificate today, okay? Chapter 6. I knew that although Angelo was 30, he had been so overprotected by his family that he still behaved like a child, believing that as long as he put on a pitiful face and apologized, the whole world should forgive him. The old me found his immaturity endearing. I hoped he would always remain carefree, untroubled by the world. But now, I was utterly disappointed. He hadn't chased after me because he loved me, but because he feared losing the obedient, well-behaved toy that always soothed his ego. But the world doesn't revolve around his whims. It was time he finally grew up. Looking at Angelo, my gaze was calm and unwavering. Go back. Angelo, stop joking. You've worked for 10 years for your inheritance. It's finally within reach. Can you really just throw it away? The rush of adrenaline that had driven him to the airport began to fade. His grip on my suitcase tightened again. His lips pressed together stubbornly as he said quietly, Amanda, please don't go overseas. As long as you stay in the city, I'll do whatever you want. Do you remember what I told you? Why our company doesn't allow overseas assignments? When I was just a baby, my mom, a career-driven woman, chose to expand our business abroad. She was gone for 5 years. When she came back, she was holding a 3-year-old boy in her arms, with a blonde, blue-eyed man beside her. From that day on, my father lost his mind. He became paranoid and possessive. He couldn't stand betrayal. The reason I resisted marrying you wasn't because I didn't love you. It's because I was afraid. Afraid that one day, when you stopped loving me, I'd become just like him. His words were unexpectedly honest, raw and unguarded. I knew this was the deepest fear he carried in his heart. The truth, however, was even darker. His mother had been worse than he described. To take half of the Jiang family's fortune, she had even kidnapped Angelo as leverage. Though he was rescued, he had fallen seriously ill afterward. The trauma of abandonment had haunted him his whole life, turning into the nightmare that shaped who he was. So I had endured, protecting his fragile heart, hoping he would one day believe in my love. But the truth was, this man who claimed to fear marriage had no problem accepting his wedding with Luna. He had smiled sweetly throughout their honeymoon. Perhaps he himself didn't realize it. His attachment and trust toward his childhood sweetheart ran far deeper than he knew. After 10 years of love, I only wished for a peaceful ending. My tone remained gentle. Angelo, I think Luna truly loves you. You don't need to hide your feelings anymore. I wish you both happiness, and may your love last a lifetime. Angelo grew flustered, insisting desperately, No, it's not like that. I only see her as a sister. She's the one who saved me from my mother back then. I admit, I might have liked her a little once, but just a little. The one I truly love is you. Amanda, please don't leave me. His voice cracked, turning hoarse and trembling as he spoke, close to tears. I found it absurd. Even now, he was still playing the ostrich, burying his head in the sand, thinking that denial could change reality. In his heart, his inheritance mattered more than me. His father's approval mattered more than me. Luna mattered more than me. Even his nights drinking with friends mattered more than me. He and I had long been drifting apart. And yet, he still claimed to love me. As the tension hung between us, a group of black-suited bodyguards suddenly entered the terminal. His father had arrived, with Luna at his side. The moment Angelo saw his father's stern face, fear flashed through his eyes. He immediately released the suitcase handle. I couldn't help but scoff inwardly. Yes, this was the Angelo I knew, a child who would never grow up. Before his father even spoke, Angelo swallowed hard and instinctively took a few steps away from me. But as he turned back, his expression shifted. His gaze locked onto mine. And for once, there was a flicker of determination. Amanda, I'll wait for you. The assignment is only for 3 years. I'll be here, waiting. Chapter 7. I could only find it ironic. He didn't even deserve a glance from me. Who needed his promise to wait? He hadn't even noticed that I'd already emptied the house of every trace of myself. Every photograph, every belonging, every mark of my presence was long gone. My home had disappeared the day my mother died. Turning away, I boarded the plane without looking back. After landing, I went out to eat with a female colleague who had come to pick me up. Her name was Lily. She had been sent overseas a year before me, and we had met briefly back at headquarters. As soon as she saw me, she patted my shoulder excitedly. "Amanda, you're finally here. Our boss has been trying to recruit you forever. I knew you didn't want to work abroad, so I didn't push, but if I'd known you were coming, I'd have called you right away." I smiled faintly. In truth, this foreign company had tried to poach me many times before. They had even strengthened their partnership with our firm and expanded their overseas program just to lure me over. But back then, blinded by love, I'd turned down every offer. Thinking about it now, I couldn't help but feel foolish. As Lily and I sat down at a Chinese restaurant, my phone on the table began to vibrate nonstop. It was Angelo. I frowned. Nothing good could come from him calling. Lily, however, looked stunned. "Wait, our head office's general manager. Angelo? Is he calling you?" "Amanda, pick up." With no choice, I answered. On the other end, Angelo's usually composed voice was trembling violently. "Amanda, where are your things? Everything of yours is gone. Didn't you say you'd be with me forever? Why didn't you keep your word?" His voice was so loud, almost hysterical, that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Across from me, Lily dropped her knife and fork with a clatter, staring at me wide-eyed in shock. I spoke coldly. "Angelo, from the moment my mother died, there's been nothing between us." Then I hung up. After a moment's thought, I blocked his number. When I looked up again, Lily was staring at me, clearly wanting to say something but hesitating. "What's wrong?" I asked. Lily stammered. "Amanda, the boyfriend you always mentioned, is it Angelo? Because someone in our company group chat sent me a video." I understood immediately. Everyone in the company knew I had been with someone for 10 years, but no one knew who he was. Some even assumed I'd made him up. And of course, the video of me barging into Angelo and Luna's wedding, begging him to visit my dying mother, had been shared company-wide as entertainment. Now, in front of Lily, I didn't bother pretending. "Yes," I said calmly. "We were together, but it wasn't right. So we broke up." Lily's face softened with sympathy. She patted my shoulder again. "Oh, Amanda, don't be too sad. Ordinary women like us can't compete with those rich heiresses. I'll introduce you to a good, down-to-earth guy next time." I couldn't help but laugh, shaking my head. Once I started my new job, I felt lighter than ever. No one schemed against me. No one tried to undermine me. For the first time, my efforts were rewarded fairly. Within a month, I was promoted to a senior executive position, something I had failed to achieve in 10 years back home, despite 5 promotion applications. Meanwhile, Angelo kept appearing in the news, always with Luna by his side, attending banquets and events as a glamorous couple, showered with praise, a perfect match. People said, perhaps Angelo had finally figured it out, that Luna was the true love buried deep in his heart. That was fine by me. Now, whenever I saw their affectionate photos, my heart was utterly still. No pain, no bitterness, just peace. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed. It was time for me to return home for my reassessment. Chapter 8. I never expected it, but when I landed, it was Angelo and Luna who came to pick me up. Angelo stood there in sunglasses, his face full of arrogance. The moment he saw me, he turned on his heel and walked away. Luna, on the other hand, wore her usual mask of gentle hypocrisy, her words sharp beneath the silk. "Amanda, it looks like your life abroad has treated you better than back home. You've even put on some weight, must be enjoying yourself too much to come back." Huh? Since they came on behalf of headquarters, I couldn't refuse. I followed them quietly. I unconsciously rested a hand on my stomach, 3 months pregnant. Though my winter coat hid it well, not fat. I thought to myself, out loud. I replied lightly, It's been pretty good." When we reached the underground parking lot, Angelo got into the driver's seat first. Then Luna opened the front passenger door and sat down. As she fastened her seatbelt, she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, Amanda. I forgot, you should be sitting in the front. I'll move to the back." Angelo gave a cold snort. "Don't spoil her habits. She can sit in the back." I found the exchange strange. Was it suddenly a new rule in China that guests had to sit in the front seat? Why had Luna even offered? But since Angelo had spoken, I simply nodded and got into the back. Angelo's grip on the steering wheel tightened so hard his knuckles turned white. His eyes darkened as he gritted out, "Amanda, didn't you once say the front seat is for girlfriends only? You used to hate when anyone else sat there." I blinked, confused. Well, Luna's your wife. Of course she should sit in the front." Angelo's face grew even darker. He said nothing, driving in heavy silence. The tension filled the car like suffocating smoke. To break it, I took out my phone and quickly messaged my husband to let him know I'd landed safely, just in case he worried. Yes, my husband, during these 3 years abroad. Through Lily's introduction, I met Dominic, a colleague from the same company. Like me, he had lost his entire family. Neither of us had any ties left back home. Maybe it was shared loneliness, maybe mutual understanding, but we connected instantly, endlessly talking about everything. A year later, we got married. By the time I returned home, I was 3 months pregnant. Dominic had work to finish overseas, so I told him not to come. From the rearview mirror, I noticed Angelo watching me as I smiled down at my phone. His jaw clenched so hard I could hear the faint grind of teeth. Then, clearing his throat, he said stiffly, "Amanda, aren't you going to ask how I've been?" Before I could answer, he continued himself. "Last month my father retired and handed me full control of the company. It's mine now." So this was a flex. He was trying to compete with me, to show who was living the better life. My phone buzzed again with a new message. "I'm just glad you landed safely. My love, how's our baby doing today? I'll come to you as soon as I finish my work." It was followed by a cute bear emoji making a heart. I couldn't help smiling and replied with a heart emoji of my own. In good spirits, I said casually to Angelo, "Congratulations." But the next second, the car screeched violently to a stop. I lurched forward, barely catching myself with one hand. Startled, I instinctively cradled my belly, soothing the baby. Before I could even ask what he was doing, Angelo was staring at me, eyes blazing, jaw tight with anger. Luna glanced between us, then said sweetly, "Amanda, why so polite? Don't tell me you're still upset because Angelo and I are close. He's missed you all these years. He even added extra trips abroad just to find you." Angelo cut her off sharply, snapping, "Luna, why are you telling her all that? Some people have no heart, they've been jealous for years, still holding a grudge. How petty." "Huh? Jealous? Me?" I was stunned. Before I could even respond, Luna seized the opening, smiling as she asked, "Amanda, you look even prettier now. I bet you were quite popular abroad, right?" I answered vaguely, "It was fine. I'm married now." Beep. The car horn blared, loud and piercing, as Angelo slammed his fist against it. He turned toward me, eyes bloodshot, his voice hoarse. "What did you say?" Chapter 9. I met his gaze and said calmly, "I'm already married. I got married abroad." Luna's eyes lit up, the corners of her lips curling upward in an unmistakably gloating smile. "Amanda, everyone knows how much you used to love Angelo. You shouldn't joke about something as serious as marriage." Angelo, however, tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk appearing on his face. "Amanda, I didn't expect that 3 years overseas would teach you how to lie. Anyway, since you're back, don't leave again. All those promises I once made, I can finally make them come true now." I didn't even know what to say anymore. If he didn't believe me, then so be it. Talking sense to someone as stubborn as Angelo was nothing but a waste of breath and of life. When I arrived at the company, I quickly presented my report on the results of my overseas assignment. Taking advantage of the moment when Angelo and Luna went to a meeting, I went straight to the HR department. Then, I handed in my resignation. The HR officer stared at me in shock. After all, everyone who returned from an overseas assignment had become an executive and stayed on. completely content. This was the first time he had seen someone come back and immediately resign. He stammered, All right. I'll submit this for you. You should get an answer within 3 working days. I gave him a faint smile. Then I left and took a taxi to my mother's grave. That was, after all, the real reason I had returned. Along the way, the villagers still whispered and pointed. Hey, look who's back. She disappeared for 3 years. What? Did they finally release her? Don't talk nonsense. Her husband said she went abroad for work, doing great things out there. Husband? Who were they talking about? I didn't pay attention. Villagers always liked to mix gossip with imagination. When I arrived at my mother's grave, I was surprised to see the tombstone spotless, as if someone had been cleaning it regularly. I didn't think much of it. I knelt down, laid a bouquet of fresh flowers, and lit 3 sticks of incense. After bowing several times, I stood and gently touched the gravestone. Mom, I murmured, your daughter hasn't come to see you in 3 years. Did you miss me? I came to tell you, you have a son-in-law now. And soon, you'll have a grandchild too. I know you never liked being far from home, but my career is overseas now. It might be a long time before I can come back again. Still, don't worry. Mom, I'll visit whenever I can. A soft breeze brushed past me, like my mother's tender hand caressing my hair, just as she used to. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Angelo, panting heavily, slowed when he saw me. A faintly proud smile curved his lips. Amanda, I knew I'd find you here. He took out a handkerchief and began wiping the dust from my mother's tombstone with practiced familiarity. I froze for a moment. All these years, have you been the one taking care of my mother's grave? Angelo lowered his eyes, his long lashes hiding his expression. His voice was soft. I heard from the villagers about what happened to your mother. I'm sorry. I know you suffered. It's normal that you wanted to run away from me. I almost laughed. Run away from him? He was giving himself far too much credit. I said calmly, Thank you, but I didn't leave because of you. I left for myself, for my youth, for my own efforts. Suddenly, Angelo pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, his voice muffled against my hair. You're still so stubborn. Don't worry, I'm in charge of the company now. Luna and I are heading toward a scripted divorce. When it's done, I'll marry you first thing. I'll make it public this time. I stared at him, incredulous. Was there something wrong with his brain? We hadn't spoken in 3 years. How could he possibly still think we were together? I pushed him away immediately, terrified of hurting the baby. But Angelo, oblivious to everything, grabbed my wrist again before I could speak. Amanda, I've arranged a celebration banquet for you at the branch office. Come with me now. All the way there, he kept talking to himself, not giving me a chance to reply. When we arrived, I was stunned. The lobby had been decorated with ribbons and banners reading Welcome Back. Amanda. Luna, however, didn't look pleased. Her face was stiff, but when she saw Angelo, she forced a smile and pushed through the crowd. Angelo, you're finally here. Everyone's been waiting for you. The same coworkers who once mocked me or made my life miserable now lowered their heads, or pretended nothing had ever happened. Some even piled on the praise. Amanda, I always knew you were talented. See? I was right. Amanda, do you remember me? I used to be on your team. Back then, I said our leader would definitely go far someday. Angelo smiled faintly, clearly satisfied. But then, an HR staff member approached him hesitantly, handing him a piece of paper. Angelo frowned impatiently. Can't this wait until office hours? We're celebrating right now. Still, he took the paper, then his face changed instantly. His lips parted slightly. Resignation letter. Chapter 10. The next second, Angelo's eyes locked onto me, intense and unblinking. His thoughts were clearly in chaos. He tossed my resignation letter aside without even thinking. I saw it and reminded him calmly. Mr. Angelo, please sign it. My flight back overseas leaves tomorrow. His eyes widened in disbelief. You're leaving tomorrow? Amanda, are you throwing away your future? I sighed inwardly. My husband's overseas. I don't want to work here anymore. Is that a problem? Luna, unable to resist adding fuel to the fire, said sweetly, Amanda, do you really have a home abroad? If that's true, Angelo, then maybe. Before she could finish, Angelo's expression darkened instantly. Amanda, stop it! You only submitted this resignation to pressure me into promoting you, didn't you? Well, fine. I've already decided you'll be transferred to headquarters as a vice president. What else could you possibly want? Luna's smile froze. As the current vice president, she clearly didn't like that one bit. Just as the tension reached its peak, a gentle, refined male voice came from the doorway. So this is where Amanda works. At the sound of that voice, I immediately turned and hurried toward the door. My husband's voice. I quickened my pace, excitement rising in my chest. Darling, you're here already? Dominic reached out to steady me, concern flashing in his eyes. Amanda, slow down. Be careful. You're carrying our baby. For a moment, everyone was stunned. Angelo froze completely. The entire office fell silent. Then, someone recovered first and tried to lighten the air with flattery. Wow, Amanda, you're married and pregnant? You're really living the dream. We're all jealous. Yeah, and your husband's so handsome. Lucky you. Amanda. Dominic blushed but lifted his head proudly, taking my hand in his. A quiet, protective gesture. Amanda, I wanted to surprise you, he said softly, and I wanted to visit Mom's grave with you too. Angelo finally snapped out of his daze, but all his composure was gone. He looked utterly unhinged. He strode forward, trying to pry Dominic's hand away from mine. You're lying. Amanda is my wife. You hired this guy to act just to mess with me, didn't you? I instinctively raised my arm to block him, and accidentally slapped him across the face. A sharp smack echoed in the room. Dominic immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me protectively, his brows furrowed in warning. Luna rushed to Angelo's side, her voice trembling. Angelo, are you hurt? But Angelo just stood there, covering his reddened cheek, his whole body shaking. Then, without warning, tears streamed down his face. His voice cracked, hoarse and broken. Amanda, tell me this isn't real. You said you'd only ever love me in this lifetime. I looked at him, my gaze as cold as ice. Angelo, let me say this one last time. We broke up long ago. There's nothing between us anymore. My husband's name is Dominic. He loves me, and I love him. Dominic guided me carefully out of the company. This time, Angelo didn't follow. That night, Dominic and I rested at a hotel, planning to visit my mother's grave together the next day. The following morning, I received confirmation that my resignation had been approved. At the same time, I saw a news article. Angelo and Luna were publicly showing off their affection again, announcing their plans to have a baby next year. Their fans online were ecstatic, flooding the comments with blessings. Then, unexpectedly, Angelo sent me a message. Amanda, I'll wait for the day you realize your true feelings and come back to me. Once you lose me, you'll regret it. I rolled my eyes, delusional. After visiting my mother's grave with Dominic, I booked our tickets and flew back overseas. Just a few months later, news broke that Angelo's company had been absorbed by Luna's, and he had been completely ousted from the corporate hierarchy, from the golden boy of the business world to a nobody. After that, I never heard from him again. 7 months later, I safely gave birth to a healthy 7-pound baby girl. Holding that soft, tiny life in my arms, warmth filled my heart. Perhaps this peace, this love, was what happiness truly meant.